Hi, I'm Rob Parker from Nuclear for Climate Australia. As we all know, there's an election coming, and therefore it's time that we need to use our votes to avoid an energy blunder down under. As we see on the image below, Australians have an option on how we go to our clean energy future. On the left-hand side, we have what our current government is pursuing together with our EMO of a system based upon wind and solar, where variable weather-dependent generators are needed to supply enough energy to meet our demand at any particular time. Of course, this doesn't always happen. And so to enable that, we need to have things like battery storage or pump storage, or we need gas backup. Of course, the problem with gas backup is that it is a fossil fuel and is not really helping us to meet our transition to a clean energy future. At times, we find that we do not supply enough energy and we don't have enough in storage. This happens typically when wind lets us down, as it did in May about a couple of years ago, or typically when people want to use a lot of air conditioning in the middle of summer. So we have this thing called demand response, which is a bit of a euphemism as saying that we really turn off a part of our economy. In doing that, we close things down like aluminium smelters or steel manufacture, things that are vital to our economic output. And so we shouldn't be surprised when we see industries like that go offshore because they can't get enough low-cost energy to maintain economic future. The other problem, of course, with the renewables is that it does not produce low-cost energy. It has produced low-cost energy in South Australia, where they have the highest consumer prices in Australia for electricity. And it certainly hasn't done in California, where it has the highest energy prices of any state, mainly in the United States. So we need to be looking for another option. And that option has been sitting out there for the best part of 4 decades in places like France, where we can go to nuclear energy. And if we went to nuclear energy, we would escape the fluctuating and unreliable prices that are set by renewables. We would go to a baseload system of constancy of cost, and we would always ensure that we could meet our demand with a reliable supply. And we would need quite a large proportion amount of nuclear, up around 75% nuclear, supported by solar, wind, and our existing hydro. And that would give us a system with the lowest cost, optimum solution for Australia to achieve our very low carbon energy future. So in the remainder of this brief talk, I'm going to look at about 9 different issues of the vital benefits of nuclear energy for Australia. Firstly, there are massive cost benefits by adding nuclear to the mix. It's about half the cost of a system based on wind and solar. Secondly, nuclear brings vastly greater emissions reductions to the system, like about a quarter of that of wind and solar. That's because with wind and solar and batteries and pump storage and all the other paraphernalia, we have a very high embodied carbon dioxide that went into the manufacture. Thirdly, a nuclear-based system uses about a fifth of the non-renewable resources of a full wind and solar grid. So if we really want to escape the problems of mining over all our landscapes, we really need to be turning to nuclear. Fourthly, we can make our future energy systems right here in Australia with nuclear. We can use our own labour and people and intellect. We can use our own uranium, steel and concrete. And we need help along the way, of course, with friends like Korea and Canada to help us. Fifthly, we can reindustrialise around nuclear. We can go to our old manufacturing centres of places like Newcastle, Wollongong, down around the Latrobe in Victoria or in South Australia to build the new energy systems. We then go to final points here, the sixth, that we must significantly increase the investment in our people required to reindustrialise Australia around a nuclear future. For example, large increases in more scholarships in engineering and science could be used to cancel out the HECS debt. That would certainly bring in a lot of people wanting to undertake those sorts of professions. We could do the same for apprentices. The nation should pay to educate its people. HECS and apprentice costs are a dead weight on economic growth. My seventh point is that there are massive environmental benefits by using nuclear, by not destroying forests and agricultural land, by not destroying the visual amenity of our regions, particularly our coastal locations or the ridges of the Great Divide. By using an energy resource that has the lowest environmental impact of any energy source like nuclear, we would escape the visual pollution that we have of all the transmission lines that are now being carved out through our national parks. Point 8, a nuclear system does not need big deep storage systems like Snowy Hydro 2.0 or the Barumba system. Each of these is costing about $18 billion. They carve out tremendous amounts of damage to our native environments with the new transmission lines and their infrastructure, and particularly damage waterways. Finally, point 9, nuclear has come under attack for being too slow to develop, but in truth it is the fastest way to achieve a low-carbon energy system for populations. It's been proven in France, Ontario and Sweden to achieve that, where they built systems within about a 22-year period to power their nations and provinces. My final point now goes to that of our upcoming election. The anti-nuclear legislation must be removed with all urgency. That's what's standing in the way legislation-wise. We need to use our votes at this forthcoming election by voting for the coalition, who are the only party who are putting up a prevention or a method to get rid of the anti-nuclear legislation. So thank you for your time, and in future videos, I'm going to cover off in detail on more of the points I've made in this one.